Hey, everybody. Here we are back from our trip around the world. Both of us took a trip all the way around the globe. I think William took a sailboat and I walked.
Yeah, I
So,
think I saw one with Greta Thunberg.
yeah, right. There you go. So, you want to talk about that
We're
today?
trying to smuggle in about 40 pounds of aid into Gaza because,
Don't get started on that.
no, everyone's already pissed off at us anyway. So I think we're.
Yeah. Okay. So, here we are. Sorry we've been gone so long, but I'm not sure how many people noticed. But anyway, we're back. So let us know what you think. And we'll play a little clip here and talk about it. Probably talk about a lot of other things. But here's the clip, and we'll go from there.
Who killed chivalry? You did. Women, you did. Men got tired of coming over and saying, hey, can I help you? I don't need your help. You think I'm small and I can't do it myself? I can carry my own suitcase. Ugh. They got tired of that. They got tired and they stopped doing the gentlemanly stuff. They stopped. They don't want to be told they're harassing you by coming over and asking if you need help.
There's probably more to it than that. It's like 30 seconds or whatever. So what do you think of that, William?
Of course. I mean, when you played that for me, initially I was like, yeah. I think so many men know this. It's like, oh, I want to step up. I want to stand in my masculine, and I want to be a good person. I want to be a good man to women in the world and women that I love. And so we extend ourselves and we offer help or we offer support. And too often, the implication is, how dare you think that I need it?
Exactly.
That I need your help and support is an insult to me. And so men become conditioned. Classical operant conditioning. How many times does that have to happen before you say forget it?
And it doesn't even need to happen. It's in the culture. So it's like the culture teaches men to not do those things because it's considered an insult and stay away from it. And what's interesting is that men don't do it because they think the woman can't. And that's how it's interpreted. A man comes to help a woman carry a suitcase or whatever, or open a door, especially. And it's like, what do you think I can't do that? You think I'm not capable? You think I'm weak? You think this? And that's not it at all. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with courtesy, and it has to do with a masculine code that, men are there partially to extend a courtesy to women. And
it's a very good point. And let's not confuse. You're just doing that for yourself. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Men need to feel needed.
Yeah,
we need to. There's something about knowing that we have value, just intrinsically in the fact that we're men. And that's appreciated and that we're needed. I think one of the biggest crisis, one of the biggest issues driving this crisis of masculinity and whatever that we're in, is men not feeling needed.
Yeah,
especially with the workforce and with things like even like AI taking over. It's like, oh great, even more opportunity for men to not have a place in the world where they feel like they're needed. There's something intrinsic and deep about that, that if no.
Well, how is that different than women wanting to feel needed? What is the difference?
It's a different kind of need. I'm just trying to see if I can pinpoint what that need is.
It's definitely a different kind of need.
I'd say, okay, it depends on the qualities of need. And so, like she was saying before about, I don't know if it was in this clip or the other one that we were talking about, but she makes this comment about the complementary nature. Like that was the previous one. You want me to be in my masculine, but in order for me to be in my masculine, you need to be in your feminine, right?
Right.
And plus and minus. So I would say the needs are different. So
And that the method of presenting, fulfilling that need is different. Because the need is different, so the thing that fulfills it is different.
Yeah. And I would say that like the sort of like the feminine, I need to feel needed is I need to feel like you need me to nurture you, to carry the emotional to do the emotional labor, to soften and hold and right. Mm-hmm. I need to feel like you can come to me and open up. So what a lot of women will say, the trouble with their partner is that men don't feel safe enough to open up and allow themselves to be held. They always have to be in control and in charge, and women want them to be able to soften so they can hold them in that. And for the men,
that's a good point. I don't know if you want to spend time on that, but I think there's a problem in that. Mm-hmm. And I think the feminist culture has made that problem. Anyway, it's a topic that would probably take a whole hour to go over this idea that a woman needs a man to soften up in order to share emotions and whatever is a requirement of the relational male, female, masculine, feminine, whatever. And you probably have a lot to say about that yourself.
Let's say, for example, that I'm in the kitchen and I'm struggling with some dish that I'm making, right? And my wife comes in and she sees that and she goes, yeah, clearly what's required here is like patience and a gentle touch. You brute are trying to force this through and trying to, impress your will upon this thing in the kitchen happening. And so if she comes in and say, hey, can you step aside for 1 second? Let me take over. This takes a gentle touch. And lo and behold, her gentle touch brings about the result. You see, all it needed was a little of, this and that. There is a sense in my experience that's something that women feel good about. They say, oh, you couldn't manage because you were, you couldn't access your feminine in this moment to be patient with this thing. I gave that to you in this, and we now have a solution to the problem. It feels good. Okay.
It feels good to who?
To the woman.
Yeah.
And let's stay in the kitchen. Classic, struggling with the jar. Honey, can you, and you go, there you go. And you feel good. Yeah, I feel good. You couldn't do it and I could. Now, of course, there's always the joke that comes after in this polarity. Oh, I loosened it for you. Yeah. Now, a mature man in his wholeness goes, yeah, you did. Of course you did.
Yeah, right.
It was a mutual effort.
This opens up so much that really needs to be talked about. Because there's subtleties in it. It's like anybody thinking that what it is that a man say what it is that a woman gets out of a man opening a door for her. Okay, just to stick to really simplistic things. She doesn't really get anything that she can't do herself. And if you focus on this, well, I can open the jar myself, or maybe I can't, and it takes a strong man to open it. That's not even what's going on here. What's going on here is what you said originally. It's like a sense of even though I do simple things like open doors, I do more than that. But I do those things because they're very clear demonstrations of this mutual you receive and I give. I open a door, you receive it with grace and with honor, therefore respecting me and showing me that I have a purpose. As simple as that is, it of course expands out. If you're a jerk and you're a drunk, or if you're abusive or whatever, who cares how many doors you open? You're not a man. You're not expressing that. It's more than opening the door. Obviously, that's a symbol. And when the symbol is turned into the actual objective thing, well, you're opening the door because I'm not capable of doing it, and that's offensive, then you're losing the whole point. And
it was never. How often do you think men feel like that was? I was never even implying that. I never even thought that thought. Now, of course, there are times when you have chauvinist, bigoted men who might. But I feel like in this world, it's increasingly rare to find those kind of attitudes, especially not those kind of attitudes expressed. Now, of course, I live in Toronto. Maybe in other places in the world that's not true, but in my experience, you're pretty hard pressed these days to find a good old fashioned chauvinist who genuinely thinks that women are weak and need men to step in and save them from themselves. But that doesn't mean that there isn't something in the feminine that's still carrying that wound and looking for it. Yeah. If you think too about, I'm thinking a lot about in Tantra, the idea of being a sacred mirror, right? And positive and negative. And it's like so many couples, you probably know this, right? Is like they're not being sacred mirrors for each other. And it's about not being seen. Not even being seen like, oh, I see how hard you're working for the family and I appreciate you. That's great. The verbal affirmation. But in these classic kind of domestic, little psychodramas that we all, know about, if I come home from a long day of work and I look stressed out and my partner is able to hold me in that and, here, let me take your bag for you and sit down and give you your meal. It's been prepared for you. Not only do I feel seen in that, but I feel like I'm experiencing the appreciation of that. Now, alternatively, maybe a woman is feeling, disconnected and like she's not feeling seen. And a man says, hey, guess what? I planned a wonderful date for us, you and I. 5 o'clock on Friday, be ready. I'm going to take you out and I'm going to, that whole evening is going to be for you. That's me showing you my appreciation, not just saying I appreciate it, but by doing something. And enough of that in a relationship, those little things go so much further than you needing to, write out an inventory of all the things that you appreciate and why, which is nice. But those actions, but if we get caught up in this, that's traditional roles and we shouldn't do that. And men and women, it's a man who's a feminist would never open the jar for the woman. And my point is this, and like to what you were saying, it's never about you can't do it or you must do it or it's the right or God ordained that's what you should do. Fuck that.
Yeah, no, right.
Because I'm always radically pragmatic. How do you feel when you do it? With polarity.
But why do you feel that way? I mean, that's
why does it feel good? Sure. Look, maybe we can argue from a postmodern feminist perspective and say, okay, fine, you feel that way because of your cultural programming, right? Because that's you kind of fitting lock and key into patriarchal values. Okay, sure. Now let's go below that. Let's go to the biological. No, there's something about that deeper in your biology, and even under that, deeper in the archetypal levels that you feel that. I guess part of what I want to point out to people is who fucking cares.
Well, ultimately, who fucking cares? Absolutely.
I want to feel that. I love the feeling of feeling needed. Give me that thing.
Yeah.
See,
it's reductionist science to look for the reason for it. To reduce it down to those bare minimum parts. It's interesting to do, but it's absolutely not necessary. But the problem is that our whole culture, since scientism and whatever has come into place, that people don't respond to just because it feels good. They respond only to what is scientifically correct or has validity scientifically or culturally even. And it's like you lose all that. As you were talking, I was thinking about how much emphasis used to be put on presentation symbology, like costumes and clothing. And I mean, you look at even looking at current stuff on television that are period pieces like The Gilded Age or Bridgerton's or whatever, the focus that was put on how you present, the symbology that you present. And that symbology is a representation of what's going on under the hood, what's going on deeper, an appreciation for the way people look, the way people act, opening the door and being feminine or being masculine or whatever it is. They're symbols. They're symbols to deeper systems that are running like underwater rivers that are running underneath of you. And if you follow those systems through your symbology of what you present, then you're going to feel like you're in alignment with them. You're going to feel good. You're going to feel appreciated. You're going to feel needed. All of those things, you're in alignment because your symbology of your behavior actually flows with that. And I think that's essentially missing. Or
yeah, sure.
certainly
and we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Weird side note. I think I remember saying this to you at one point, and you liked it. I was saying, I still like listening to the radio, not because I like the kind of music that's on the radio necessarily more than what I can choose off of my playlist. But there's something nice about knowing that everyone around me is listening to the same thing. I feel kind of oddly connected. It's playing in my car, it's playing in a deli, it's playing over here. And there's a weird way of being connected.
Wow. I don't remember you saying that. I think that's brilliant.
But right?
I mean, I think that's brilliant. And that we obviously have lost.
Totally.
Okay. That's wonderful. I have to think about that.
Yeah, try listening to the radio and notice what's happening in your body when you do. But I'll go one level deeper. When we look at Greek tragedy, especially Aeschylus and Oresteia, this like founding, profoundly influential document for the foundation of Western, civilization. When I was taught it initially in university, I remember the professor saying, one of the things that we'll never really be able to appreciate is that when this played, and it played over and over again, it was a very successful play. And it, by the way, is the triumph of justice over revenge. But also, many feminists see it as the beginning of systemic patriarchy, because it really is coded in masculine and feminine language. The chaos and revenge is associated with the feminine. I would argue, of course, more particularly in the dark feminine. But this is the triumph over it through a trial. What my professor was saying was, what we could never understand is that every time that Greeks would go, every year or whatever this would go on, that they would go and watch this thing and collectively witness the birth of the concept of justice, the feeling that they would have had walking out, that they all were on the same page, that we all agree now, that we have finally landed on something that is beneficial for everyone, that justice shall prevail, and that justice should be administered in a partial way, and that it's better than revenge and blood feuds. And there's this collective kind of cohesion in that moment that is tied to an emotional response of the climax, and the catharsis of the dramatic arc. You can't even get people to agree that a movie is good. 70% of the critics says it's good, 80% of the critics. Other people say, "Oh, shit, I hate that actor, or it's a boring movie." But even just that, like, we can all agree that something is, a great piece of art is hard enough, let alone anyone ever coming to any kind of agreement on things fundamental, and how that completely disconnects us and completely alienates us and makes everyone feel totally unseen.
Wow. Yeah. So important, and such a reflection, or our times are such a reflection on the shadow side of what you're saying on this idea of not having consensual experiences, and certainly not having consensual conclusions about the meaning of something, and the purpose behind it.
But the argument that I'm trying to make, which is might feel like a stretch, is that fleeting moment of listening to the radio and this sort of amorphous sense that everyone's listening to the same thing, I think is connected into that, what we've lost. But it's also what you were saying about why does it feel good?
Yeah, right.
It feels good because it for whatever reason, we're tapped into something that's bigger than us.
Yeah.
That works, it makes us feel good.
Right.
Justice isn't necessary. You can live in a culture in which there is no such thing as the Western concept of justice. You can live under the tyranny of blood feuds, but it doesn't feel good. You can live in a country where people are more or less happy and affluent, but everything is corrupt, but it doesn't feel good. When you finally you see my point, and you find
and you're getting,
or very little, everyone feels like, oh, we're all aligned that that's not a good thing to do. And so that, I think that's a core of the feeling, is that we are all going with the same impulse. We are all kind of agreeing that this is the right order of things. This is like the Tao. We're going with the right order of things. The Taoists have a wonderful way of looking at the world, which is that if you ever find yourself, in some way going against the flow of nature, pushing yourself upstream, tune into that. Because what happens when you simply move into the yes of the way of things are, and that's truth, And that's being with nature. So it's the justice, part of the reason that justice is about flow is because we're all agree on the truth. The environmental movement, we're going with nature, not against it. All those are very Taoist ideas. And the Taoists simply said, if you find yourself suffering, notice whether or not you're pushing against the way things are, or the way things that nature has, or the way of the natural world, which they call the Tao. And I mean, I think it's just infinitely practical.
Well, yeah, and I think from a certain level, not necessarily the deepest level, but a certain level that's flowing with the archetypal powers that kind of create a certain pattern that it expects. And you can certainly flow against it if you're conscious of it, and the culture will push you to flow against it. Same thing with the body, homeostasis, the body functioning, and spiritually, when we get into what morals are, what are considered truth with a capital T, absolute truth rather than relational truth or I can't think of what word I'm trying to think of, but it's, I mean, that's essentially the work. The problem that comes in, and considering the clip, is again this resistance to what is natural flow, and making up reasons why it's wrong. It's wrong for men to help women, like opening the door, the chivalry thing, or whatever, because of this. So the culture then dictates why it's wrong. And then you just totally bypass the feeling good or feeling in alignment. And that does make you feel good. So feeling good is okay to say. I mean, not everything we do has to feel good. That's right. Yeah. But in this particular case, what we're talking about, the specifics, the context of what we're talking, feeling good's fine to say that. And then it causes all these other problems, like if you have men that are not allowed to flow with this chivalry idea, to find the satisfaction to be needed through this, then you're going to start losing all the other alignments, like provider or security or caregiver. I mean, all the things that come along with it start to slip away, and
things are going to slide in all directions.
It is on both sides of it, not just the male side, but women as well.
The line from Leonard Cohen's great song "The Future," I think it was quite apt. Well, I mean, a bit of a side note, but yeah, essentially the essential concept of these polarities that we're talking about, I think, can be traced back. The first whoever really brought these into our conscious attention at a deep level was Tantra, in the way that they saw the human experience through these polarities, the dualistic and non-dualistic strains of it. But in Tantra, especially in the left-hand path, in the more like Kashmiri Shaivist strain, they are very much about tuning into how pleasure. This is why it's often conflated with sexual practices, which it's very much way more complicated than that. But what's true in that is that they have this understanding of what is pleasure and desire and pull, that natural pull. What is that telling us? How can we harness that, as opposed to doing what so many traditions attempted, which is to push against that and say, no, if it feels good, don't do it, right? Mm-hmm. The tantrikas are not saying if it doesn't feel good, don't do it. They say more like being in alignment with how you can learn to be moved and pulled and driven by desire in a conscious way. And so part of that would be it's light on the discipline. It's not like wake up every morning like a Zen, at 4 o'clock in the morning, and for 2 hours straight, you're going to focus your concentration on your breath. And if you, fall asleep or whatever, the monk will come and crack you. In Tantra, does it feel good to sit quietly and observe your breath? And for how long? And when my mind is scattered, I can sit quietly and and they say that's the right way to do things. that you should be driven toward it because it feels good. And that motivation, and this is like a classic, you'll hear this from life coaches now. It's like, you can't just force yourself to go to the gym. You got to find something that feels good. Like if you get involved with a sport, you're more likely to continue to do it. So there is something here that's deep about being driven by desire. And so, and it's not just to simply collapse the polarity and say, only go with what's right. But my point around this and what she's saying is, if there's something that feels good about doing that, and listen to it like we've just done here, and try to unpack where that's coming from, and don't dismiss it. Don't dismiss it as, oh, well, it only feels good because it's internalized patriarchy.
No. And I would like to make a little bit of a distinction in that too. Yeah. It's like when we say the words feel good, we tend to, at least I do, tend to look at a sensual feeling good, like a sensory feeling good, which then gets into the problem of instant gratification, of eating the cookie instead of waiting till later when it'll feel better because you're healthy. And I think that's what you're saying here. I think that ultimately it's an ultimate feeling in alignment, which is a feeling correct. I mean, it's almost not like saying feeling good kind of sounds like a sensory thing, but it's feeling correct. It's feeling like you're in alignment, you're integrated, you're doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. And you can do a lot of things that immediately feel like shit, but inside that you're leading toward being
So that's the practice. The practice is when we're not mindful, when we're not consciously doing that, we get confused. Mm-hmm. So if I do something like, let's say I eat a cookie and I get a dopamine hit, I get a little oxytocin, I get a little satisfaction, I get out of my head and into my body, and I feel relaxed and satisfied in that moment. If I'm not paying deep mindful attention, I will not notice that 90 minutes later, I feel a little dip in my insulin, or that the next morning I wake up feeling a little bit less rested because I had it too late at night, or that if I do that consistently over a period of 2 or 3 weeks, I don't feel good because I'm carrying weight in my body. I feel inflamed and overweight and carrying fat. So the desire and the good feeling is like, if you only focus on this part, but if you are disciplined enough, or maybe I contradict myself, but the tantrikas don't want to be disciplined in that sense. But if you are aware enough to see that in context, if you expand your awareness, you will notice that that thing looks that bit of pleasure looks different in contrast. Opposite being said, if I withhold ejaculation in sex, right, I might notice that it feels a little unsatisfying in the moment, but if I pull back and recognize that, but then I feel more alive afterward. And when I consistently do that over a period of 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 days, I actually can increase this feeling of aliveness, this prana, that it extends. The great teaching of tantric sex is that you think that orgasm and ejaculation is the greatest thing, right? But what you don't notice is if you pull back, you can expand that and have it be something that lasts for a much longer.
Hey, you sound like David Deida or
David Deida, I'm sure, because he's influenced by a lot of, and to be correct, I think they would be more aptly called neo-tantric sexual practices, or Chinese tantric, whatever. Yeah. But that's what I mean by desire. And so when we're talking about, okay, it feels good to be chivalrous in that moment, we have to come to that with an awareness of when we say, it feels good, how do we understand that?
Well, obviously, there are a lot of examples of feeling good in the moment as well as feeling good ultimately over time. And I think this is one of them if we're talking about the simplistic thing of being chivalrous, opening doors and picking suitcases up and whatever. I think at the moment you're doing that, you also feel good. Mm-hmm. But it's a cycle again. It's a symbol of something that is being exercised and being in your behavioral world that you're actually doing. You're presenting something. And although, today a radical feminist or even a feminist would argue that the woman doesn't get anything out of it. And the woman is not just getting out of it the door being open so she doesn't have to yank on the door or picking the suitcase up. That's not what she's getting. What she's getting is service that's coming from with the intention of I'm here for you. And as a physical male, I am symbolically lifting a weight that you don't have to lift, and you are receiving it with honor and grace. And therefore, you are also in alignment with the feminine archetypal systems, and therefore will feel good about it. It's not just about getting the door open or the suitcase lifted. In fact, it's not that at all. Really.
Not at all, because
that's a symbol.
It's almost always a situation in which I could do it for myself, but I.
Oh yeah, of course it is.
Yeah,
of course it is.
In fact, I think it almost sort of cancels out. I think even people who are stuck in that mindset can't really be when it becomes a matter of total incapacity, right? Where it's like, if you're taller than me and there's no way for me to reach that, and there's no ladder around. You asking suddenly is no longer in the realm of feminism or chivalry or polarities. It's just a sort of simple, we got a problem here that needs a solution. I think only it really sort of starts to become a problem when there's this question of, well, you could do it for yourself, or could you, or are you implying that I can't when really I can?
Well, I think that part of it brings up this idea that it is not a necessary thing to do. That it becomes, when you've got something. I've got something going on with the video here that's really weird. I don't know. Do you see it? It's yeah. I don't know what that is. Anyway, okay, here I am. But what I'm saying is that say you have the jar, or you can't reach something or whatever. Then there's a pragmatic presentation for the male or the masculine to do the same thing he would do opening the door. He's opening the jar, he's getting whatever. So this part of it, this obvious part of saying, well, why are you going to do that? I could do that myself, goes away.
Yeah.
So it doesn't become an argument, but essentially it's the same thing. What's going on? It's the same thing. Whether the woman could do it or not is beside the point.
Well, it's interesting too. And I was thinking a lot about the concept of masculine strength. And how it's stewarded. And I was I'll share now my story that I said to you earlier, like that.
Good. I was waiting for that.
So, all right. So maybe last summer or something. So I'm out for a walk in the afternoon, and I passed by a woman on the sidewalk on Yonge Street who's kind of backed up sort of against a car and a tree by a homeless person who is suffering from mental illness, who is yelling in her face and accosting her. And she's backed up. She's got a little dog, and she's backed up into the car, and she's yelling at him to fuck off, get out of here, leave me alone. So what do you think I do? Walk past that scene and go, not my business? No, of course. And this isn't like, I didn't think about it. I didn't debate in my head. It was just instantaneously, I see this scene, so I step over, I move over, and I say, hey, are you okay? And I look at this guy and I'm like, fuck off. Like, I didn't say anything. She turns on me. Fuck off. Leave me alone. What do you, I don't need your help. And I'm like, no,
oh my God, you're kidding.
I will leave you to it. I mean, I think she was already, kind of activated by whatever had gone on between the two of them. I didn't know what that exchange was. But I'm like, walking away being like, there it is,
Yeah.
But I was consciously aware, though, of not to fall into, I'll never do that again.
Yeah, right. No, you're right.
Half a block, I was like, I will always, in that situation, and it's not even about a thought process, like I said, it's just like that my natural instinct is that if I see conflict that I could potentially be able to diffuse, or especially because if I have the ability, like, to keep this guy away from her, because I do, right?
Yeah,
I'm gonna do that, right?
Well, that's a really good example. What you just said. I mean, the first part of it's a good example of why this is all fucked up. But what you just said is a good example, because it's not only for her, it's for you.
Sure.
And you are keeping your honor as a man. I mean, it's very Don Quixote. It's that it's working against just your honor is first, and what is right is first. It doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks about it. You're going to go out there, you're going to honor the prostitute because it's honorable, it's gentlemanly to do that. She's a woman and you honor her. So, and
Well,
yeah, so I think that's a really important lesson to learn. Don't get caught into what the culture is throwing back at you. You respond naturally to something like that.
But let's take Don Quixote as a good example. So for those who don't know the story, it's about a man who has read too many books on chivalric knighthood and becomes sort of ideologically possessed to the point where he, the tilting at windmills thing, where he makes up a fantasy of an adversary in his head in order for him to feel like he can fulfill in himself this role of knight. He's so drunk on the concept of chivalry that he wants to go and find fights where they're not there. There's a lot more going on in that book, reduce it. But if you just look at that, it's like, right. And, I think part of what this clip is pointing out is that there are men who have definitely more so, I think, in the past, maybe not less so definitely less so in this current younger generation, who will get drunk on that idea and who will white knight and who get off on egoically, not in an archetypal aligned way, but egoically get off on the idea of women are weak and I need to save them. And if I do, hey, maybe there's something in it for me.
Oh yeah, sure.
Women are right to tune into that, right? That, hey, you're under this sort of this possession state where that's totally for you. It's totally about your ego, and you being in that place erases my agency, and I become, you rescuing me. I become narcissistic, supply for you, for your ego and your thing. So yeah, that's a huge thing. But to the most extent, I think that now we don't really fall under that ideological possession state in the same way that we did even 50 years ago.
No, because it's not as accepted. There's so much resistance to it pathologically, just like that's a pathology. The resistance to it is as well. Yeah. So you have too much at stake, and there's too much to have to battle in order to be that kind of chauvinistic, over the top. I mean, as we know, everything in psychology, the extreme is always a bad news. It's like even good things, being a really good person and giving all the time, leads. Yeah, huh?
That's toxicity.
Oh yeah, it leads to codependency, and so it's not.
And the poison is in the dose. Water.
Yeah, right.
If there's too much of it, because you're either drowning, inside or out. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's a good line. I've never thought of that. The
poison is in the dose.
The poison is in the dose, because that's absolutely in psychology that applies to nearly everything, except for brain damage. That's a whole nother story. But.
Well, yeah. But it's like that's how you can get into the concept that's I think a very fruitful one of toxic positivity, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, you can never be too positive. Oh, yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can.
And that can lead you into all kinds of bypass and spiritual bypasses. A lot of that is
and we're in this talk. We're trying to pull the pendulum more balanced, because that's where we're seeing. Just like what she's saying, in the culture, we're seeing this extreme where chivalry is dead because of XYZ. And we're in our talk, we're trying to pull it down here. We're not trying to push it over on the other side.
Yeah, and also I think this is a classic. When we talk about chivalry, do we even know what we're talking about? I think a lot of people, when they think of chivalry, they use that word, but they don't know its origin. Right? They have no idea. And let me give it a shot. So you can imagine 1,500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, my dates are off, but whatever, living in England in a place where there was fucking chaos, right? It was might makes right. And if you were walking around, on the countryside, if you ran into a band of men, you got fucking nervous because they had power.
Or dead.
They had power over you, and
kind
of at their mercy. And there was blood feuds, and there was raiding, and there was it was not a good time to live, because there wasn't a sense of justice, there wasn't a sense of order. And the key thing that chivalric knighthood, so the key sort of niche that it filled, was this concept of being generous for its own sake, being respectful for its own sake. And essentially what this idea was that the world is a better place when we make the choice, when men who carry strength make the choice to not act on the reality that I could use this to have power over you, instead to hold that back, withhold that, I could, but I won't. And in fact, instead, I'm going to treat you with respect. and I'm going to defend you against injustice, and I'm going to be there for you when you need me. And I don't, and this is maybe even the key thing, I don't need anything in return.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this because I want to fuck you. I'm not doing this because now you're beholden to me. I'm not doing this because now I want you to praise me and you know, no, I'm doing.
Well, that's probably the most important element. Yeah, that's probably the most important element to it. Is that you do it not to be reciprocated in that particular way, you know, that you want payment back for it. I think mutual respect and an acceptance of the act is something to be expected. But even if you don't get it, just like you didn't, you know, in your story, you didn't get it, but you didn't like tell the guy, okay, let's both get her.
But it also, you know, it makes me think too that just in general, we live in a time in which courtesy is undervalued. We don't value courtesy.
Right.
Where our civilization has become incredibly uncivilized in many ways, just in basic stuff in the street.
Mm-hmm.
I think partly to blame for that, the breakdown of civility, is misunderstood radical feminist interpretations of courtesy as being patriarchal, and that kind of cast that attitude into suspicion. I think that played a major role, and I think a lot of people now are recognizing that well-meaning feminists who were hoping to find equality in the sexes have now, you know, those ideas have now kind of broken free in a way, or we're not challenged effectively enough, and are now just causing more harm than good. And this idea, when we start to cast doubt upon courtesy and chivalry and you know, men stepping up into the role of protector, then we get to this place, and then it's now what? Do we now live in a society where, like she says, that men or nobody wants to show respect and courtesy to everybody? Everybody becomes adversarial in their mind. I mean, I've noticed this, that there's a general sense of, especially like in like consumer exchanges, there's this adversarial tone, and I'm like, even 20 years ago, people used to say things like, well, the customer's always right.
Mm-hmm.
By that. And you know, it worked. And now I definitively notice that most places that you go, the people that are serving you and that they just assume you're wrong, and they assume that you're hostile, and they treat you accordingly. I mean,
I got a story.
Was a good one, and it's like, why the fuck? How did we get to the point that we're also hostile with each other? I mean, I understand completely why people are pissed, because they get shitty service, and I understand why the service industry is pissed, because they're dealing with shitty customers. But you know, this is all the breakdown of this notion of chivalry that we had collectively agreed upon, that partly was, you know, eroded by this suspicion of radical feminism that carried with it, and they were great sometimes. I think that's part of where we got today. Anyway.
Yeah, let me tell you two things.
Yeah.
The first one, they're not related. The second one's my story. The first one is what you're talking about with this payment for a chivalrous act, like opening a door or whatever. I could be wrong with this, so don't tell me yet, because I want to tell my second one first, and then tell me what you think of this. I think the radical feminist approach is the only reason why men do anything that's courteous is to get something back, and the first thing they want is sex.
Yes.
So that is the kind of this shadow feminist is saying the only worth I am is for you to fuck me, and therefore the only reason why you would do anything for me is to get that, because that's my value, that's my only value to a man or to anybody in anything. And
it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking. It's and you know, I don't think that's across the board. I think there's other stuff in there, but I think symbolically you can almost reduce it down to just that. I think that's where the conflict is, this patriarchal. The purpose of the patriarch is to fuck us. That's the purpose of it. It's to demean us, to control us, to have power over us in order to be able to rape us, essentially.
Totally right. Quick point here. This is the misunderstanding about gun control. You only see the concept of that weapon being pointed at you, and you fail to see that weapon pointed at the person who's trying to kill you.
Right.
the minute you see that gun and the danger and the power that it holds, when it's pointed at the person who wants to kill you, it looks very different when you're under the spell of, oh no, it's only ever going to be pointed at me to kill me. And when you get stuck in that perspective, rather than it can be both, it's very easy to denigrate guns and say that guns are the problem, and to move toward a place where everyone is completely impotent and disarmed and vulnerable to those who don't give a shit about your ideas, who will carry those guns exactly because you don't have the courage to wield that gun.
Well, the whole gun thing, that's another one we could talk about for hours. I mean, that is to me, that is one of the most clear examples of the agenda's manipulation of the people in order to get what the agenda wants. It's all propaganda. It's all brainwashing bullshit. It's just like what you're saying. I mean, that's just one element of it. I mean, you could go on and on.
All right, so
let me tell you my story real quick that's related to you talking about the culture now with the adversarial, that there's whatever. Okay, you already said all that. When I was having my kidney stone attack, I went into the emergency room, and anybody out there that's had a kidney stone thing will know what I'm talking about. It is the most mind-numbing pain that you would literally, I mean, you're close to, like, I almost jumped off a bridge once.
Yeah, sure.
It's so bad. Okay, it's so bad. Okay, so I walk into the emergency room, and it just so happened nobody was there, which is very rare. At triage, there was no one there. There was a window open, a guy sitting there, like you know, at his computer, sitting there, and there was a woman in there talking to him. And I walk up, stumble up to the counter, and I immediately go, "I'm having a kidney stone attack. I really need you to get me registered in here." The woman that was standing there talking to the guy turns to me and looks at me with this scowl and says, "Excuse me, I'm having a private conversation with him."
Jesus.
Can you believe that? And I was like, you know, just totally like, okay. What do I? And they continued their conversation. And then she turned and nodded at me like I could then talk. I mean, it's like, really? This is an emergency room. You're behind the counter in triage. I could have a knife sticking out of my back for all they know. Because I just started to say I was in pain or whatever. I may have said I had a kidney stone. Of course, if you say that, they don't care. It's like, who cares? You're just in pain.
No, that doesn't. If you think about it in terms of, like, you know, psychologically, it's like her salience landscape is skewed, where oh, but your humanity and your pain, you are what's between me and no longer playing the role of service, you know.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
right.
You're the reason I can't close. You're the reason I can't go on break. You're the reason I can't have this conversation. Right. You're a human being like me who is in horrible amount of pain. Yeah. No,
and that's her job.
Yeah, I know.
You know? I mean, it's not only from a humanitarian perspective, like you just said, but it's also, that's her job from a pragmatic point of view. I was in authority there, as any patient would be coming up to that window. That is their job. And, you know, I certainly don't need a lesson in being rude or not being rude, because, sorry, the pain, I'll be rude to you anytime.
I think you're to be forgiven. If courtesy is a struggle for you, when you're at like a 9 and a 10 on the pain scale. Yeah, I mean, I hope you reported it, because that's
no, I haven't yet. I plan to. I don't know, maybe too long, but yeah, I just haven't had a chance.
Can I not to I want to erase your story, but can I match your story very quickly with
Yeah.
So I was at MoMA recently, and I'm, you know, wandering through the galleries, and I'm completely blown away. You know, this is like, for me, this is like, you know, a Muslim going to Mecca. You know, I'm having this wonderful experience. Anyway, suddenly I said, I heard something behind me. Something like, you know, don't step into my space. And I'm like, what? You know, because you know how when you're in public and you're so I turn around and there's a security guard. And I'm like, what? And I look at her, I'm just like completely, like, totally dumbfounded. I have no concept of what the hell you're talking about. Of course, she's wearing a mask. And then I'm like trying to figure out what's going on, and then she said something like COVID, and I'm like 2025 for the people who are watching it. 2025. I have no idea. We're not social distancing anymore. Anyway, then she made some comment. I forget how she worded it, but it was in reference to my gender. You know, oh, I don't need men getting in my space. So I'm like,
oh my God.
Okay. All right. There are multiple reasons why, this is, I'm here to enjoy the exhibit. I'm a paying customer. It's completely inappropriate for you to be wearing a mask in 2025 when there is no, especially now that we know that that's not how you prevent yourself from COVID. And it is definitively and absolutely not okay for you to make gender-based comments, comments toward me. And you know me, I mean, I'm an advocate for these kind of things, and I'm not going to let that pass.
Right.
Anyway, so we finished our whole thing. As we're coming down, I'm like, all right, time to do the hard business of I'm going to go over to find someone to go, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to let them know that this woman has behaved in this way.
Yeah.
Natalie, my partner, finds the security guard who happened to be the head of security and customer experience, and he was like, oh, I'm the right one to talk to. He was incredible. He listened carefully. He took into consideration everything I was saying. He really gave a shit. He immediately said, look, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to comp your tickets, and you shouldn't have to pay for this experience. And then he was like, I really want to know who was involved. They should be reprimanded. This isn't okay. He's like, I'll walk up with you to the floor if you don't mind sort of showing me generally where it was. And then as we went up, he was like, oh, did you guys enjoy that room? And we're like, oh, I think we missed that room. He's like, oh, look, let me go over and enjoy it. Let me give you 10, 15 minutes. And then when you're done, we can finish. I'm like, this guy's going like above. Anyway, in the end of it, he said, I figured out who it is. I think we've had an issue with this security guard in the past, but I'm so sorry. I said, forget it, to keep the money. It's a donation to the gallery. I really appreciate your thing. So that was a positive one, but it was just like in your case, it's just like, it broke my brain. It just broke.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing that broke it with me is the same thing that broke it with you. It's this. How old was this security guard? About what was she, a millennial or?
I would say maybe she was in her 50s. I would say.
Yeah.
But I know she's wearing a mask and it was dark and I couldn't say, but that would be my guess. Yeah.
That's unusual because mine was older too. This woman was probably in her late 40s, mid to late. So the generation doesn't really fit, but there is this, and I don't know if it's generational. I think it's more in the culture now. This just what you described, this adversarial approach. It's like what I think is what is important, and I am always the authority of any situation that happens around me, regardless of what it is. I am the one that's of authority. And if it offends me in any way, then I have the right to say whatever I feel like I need to say. And
as a taxpayer, you have the right to expectation that courteous and timely and care, and to not be treated like that, especially when you're in pain.
Well, yeah. But I mean, in any situation, there used to be I wrote an article about this not that long ago. That's about the same kind of thing, because there used to be a jungle justice about it. You go out to the West, the Wild West. And if you turn somebody's, like, if you said something, they just blow your head off. It was like, it's like you didn't mess around with people. You were very courteous and very careful. Now, that's not a good reason for it, but I think
that I spent 11 years living in South Korea, and the service industry in South Korea, they are on top of it. You don't wait for a second most of the time, like in a bank, for example. But one of the reasons that I started to understand about how that was that the population of Korea will if they don't feel like they're getting satisfaction, they have no problem in complaining, right? And complaining in a way that's going to make your life a living hell. There's also a lot of sort of Confucianist hierarchical stuff, but if you keep an older woman in a bank waiting for more than 5 minutes, she's going to shame you, and she's going to shame you in a way that goes deep because of this hierarchical culture. And so the result is that you have incredibly good customer service. You call a hotline, it'll keep you on hold for 45 minutes.
Right.
Because there's this mob justice where if you do that, no one's buying your product, no one's doing your thing. Now, I don't know if things have changed since I've been there, but as much as I find it repugnant to see old ladies, chew out some poor younger person who's bowing, humiliated in front of everybody, as much as that's a kind of egregious, humiliation. Well, the benefits of it is that how I think Canadians don't realize how dehumanizing the culture of customer service is. Mm-hmm. That we think that somehow, like, oh well, I guess it's understandable that we've been on the tarmac for 90 minutes in a plane with no air conditioning and not being told what's going on. And God forbid that you should complain, because then you're a Karen, then you're a problem. Mm-hmm. Hey, don't do that. It boils my blood to think that we've gotten to a point now, and maybe it's not just Canadians. I mean, maybe it's the whole West. That we accept that we put up with that we think it's okay. Mm-hmm. That we don't have this would be more the Canadians. We don't have the sense of security to push back and say no, and be secure in that, and know that it's like, oh, I'm not a Karen. I'm not some disgruntled, entitled asshole. This is not right.
Well, that's one side of it. The other side is that it never should happen to start with. The discourteous presentation, like from your security guard and the woman I'm talking about, should never be there to start with. Yes, there should be consequences, which is what you're describing. But it also is this idea of what we started out with, talking about being in the flow of courteous and respectful interchange with other humans.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that has eroded. There's a lot of reasons why, and we could talk about that for hours too, but it's essentially eroding and has eroded quite a bit from the culture. This idea that it's fine to be discourteous, it's fine to be rude, it's fine to
it's understandable
to
how much assholes, how many assholes there are out there. Okay, it's understandable that you behave that way. It's not.
Yeah.
But it's also too, if you think about post-COVID and people not wanting to go back to work. This sense of infantile entitlement that many people suffer from.
Yeah, right.
It's like they can't, it's like, oh, I'm having to be of service to the consumers. It's beneath me.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna I won't put up with your shit for 2 seconds. If your Starbucks order is a little bit too complicated, I roll my eyes and say, I don't need this shit. Who the fuck do you think I am? Mm-hmm. Don't you know that how wonderful and great I am, and that this is beneath me?
Now, how do we trace that back to ManTalk?
I don't think we ever left ManTalk, but
so
I would say that if maybe to gratify some of the unspoken expectation of what we are trying to do here. If there are men out there going, okay, great, so what do I do?
Yeah, okay.
I mean,
be a man.
Be a man. Well, I mean, what we're seeing in this is be chivalrous, even though it may not be. It may be projected upon as being wrong. Do it like the Knights of the Round Table. Do it for its own good, and trust that what is right and what is aligned and what is true wins in the end. It comes back to a point that I've been making a lot recently, where people are kind of pulling their hair out when there seems to be this unending onslaught of propaganda, and that people are, how many people out there are completely, under a spell of belief that's not true, and how disheartening that can be. How could so many people be so misinformed on such important topics? What I like to come back to is, yeah, it's really scary, but if you trust that, if you really do believe that you're on the side of truth in some topic, some issue, then trust the truth. Don't think that you need to go out there and do something about it. Don't think that you need to sort of take on the responsibility. Trust that, just like if you're trying to lie about something, the reason that never works is because it takes too much energy for you to hold back the truth, and the truth will come out. And interrogators will tell you that if you're holding back on something.
Yeah, right.
We just put a little bit of pressure on you for long enough, and you're not. Yeah. So if you fear that the world is being duped into believing something that's not true, it's not that you should be passive and allow it to happen and not say anything, but don't get disheartened. Don't lose faith, because the truth has this unbelievable power that has been proven to humanity since the dawn of time over and over again to always win.
Absolutely, I agree 100%.
Timeline, but it'll win. And so if you think that
Yeah.
what are we going to do? We're all out of alignment. Alignment. If we are right that these things are about this archetypal and energetic and natural alignment, then we have to be in faith.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing to say with that is that I think, and she goes into this in this clip, is this idea that we can't, as men that are faced with this, no, don't touch the door, leave me alone, I can do this, what do you think, that we can't then project anger onto them and a feeling that well, fuck you, you think you're such a hot shit and can do anything, and do it yourself. That kind of falling into that trap is going to throw you off of this alignment that we're talking about completely.
Well, you can advocate for yourself, and you can say, let's say that you constantly get that from a man is getting that from his partner, and feeling like undervalued. It's okay for you to say, I need you to need me sometimes. And maybe it doesn't feel good when I want to like open your jar or hold back the door for you because you feel like I'm denying your agency or capability. But you know what? I kind of need it. And it would really be great if you could just sort of play along with me and give me that. You can ask for that. It's okay to ask for it.
You definitely can ask for it. We're talking now about couples relation, which is a little different than somebody on the street, some stranger you open the door for. Okay, that's a different thing, but yes, and I like what you said right at the very end there, where you said it's almost like fake it till you make it kind of thing. It's like, give this to me, allow this to happen, and you will start to see something change in you as you become more aligned with it, and then it will, and I'll become more aligned with it because I'm not doing it out of spite or doing it out of some kind of mechanism or whatever, that if you do it, and that's one of the big things with behavior, if you behave a particular way that happens to align, then it will come naturally over time.
And it's interesting too, because it actually requires for you to be out of alignment, because what we're actually saying is, even though you don't have a respectful feeling toward me, even though you don't respect me, treat me with respect anyway.
Right Exactly.
And that's the work of being chivalrous, is I might not feel like I want to extend respect and courtesy to you, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And so it's okay for you to say, I don't need, I might not need your help, but I'm going to act like I do anyway.
Yeah.
I'm going to value your help anyway. And if you say to yourself, "Oh, that's crazy," like, why? That's just sort of phony. That's a put on. It's not going to get anywhere. It's like, yeah, but that it's being held by your inner child who doesn't give a shit.
That's right. That's
right.
You're
the little boy in you who wants to feel like the white knight who came to the rescue doesn't care whether or not you don't feel it. He just wants to feel it from you. Right? One of the things that adults will notice about children's programming is that it's so toxically positive and so phony. It's like, well, right, but that's what children require, for you to hold back your need for authenticity and truth. What was it, Bowlby, the developmental psychologist, who said, or maybe it was Winnicott, truth without tact is cruelty. And it's even more so when we're dealing with children and when we're dealing with our inner child parts, right? And so it just recognize that comes from an inner child part who's not thinking rationally and doesn't need this to be logical and doesn't need this to be authentic. The little boy in you doesn't know what the fuck authentic means and doesn't care. Yeah.
Good point. Really good point. Well, we can wrap this up now if you're okay with that.
Indeed.
It's good stuff. Yeah. So please, people out there watching this, please leave a comment, even a comment just to say you watched it, whatever. Just let us know you're out there. And if you have anything you'd like to say about a direction we can go in or topics we can discuss, please bring that up, because we want to hear from you. And, we want to know what we're doing is useful to people out there. So anything you can do, William, you want to say anything to that?
Let us know in the comments below a moment in which you pushed past that fear and acted chivalrous, or a moment when you did that and it got pushed back in your face as you being an asshole. We'd love to hear your stories about this to see if we are right and
Absolutely.
We're actually tuning into the zeitgeist, or maybe we're just a bunch of assholes who are.
Yep, which very well could be. Yeah, and open all the doors you can for those foxy women out there, and even the ones that aren't foxy.
That's right. There you go. There's his ego. It's true. He's after pussy all along.
That's right. Well, that's true, actually. But it doesn't have to be literal and objective. It can be something that's very, very deep and divine and spiritual. So, we don't open doors for other guys. So there is a difference.
No.
Well, we could, we certainly could, depending on what it is, but not for the same reason. Okay, folks, we'll see you, and God bless everybody, and we'll see you next time.